Hey, and good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Do let me know in the chats if the video and the audio is looking all right, sounding all right from your end. Thank you for coming along. I can see lots of people in the chats, and today I'm actually quite excited to do this one. This is a photograph that I took myself. This was on Mother's Day, actually, and was with some of my family, and we went off to Brighton, had some bit of a stroll on the beach, and then we went and got some fish and chips after. So I thought I'd take that opportunity to go and take a few photos while I was there, and I managed to snap some pretty nice ones. And yeah, I thought we'd use this one for today's session. I was actually going to save this for another paid class, actually, but I thought, look, this is such a such a nice little scene, and you get to practice all kinds of things: the drawing and the painting of these little boat houses. You've got a bit of sand, a bit of water. You've got some figures, some people, a little bit of nature even behind. You can see some trees and stuff behind. So one of the things I did notice about this photograph, though, is that I was on the day a bit too enthusiastic and took one of those large panorama photos, and so I've had to reduce the size of this photo down a little bit. And as you can see on the top right hand corner of the screen, I've actually chopped it down a little bit. I've taken a bit of the water out, cut in the left and right hand sides, and have zoomed in. Now, you don't have to do this if you want to have a larger sort of sweeping landscape. Just keep, you can keep the rest of the scene, but I've just chosen to simplify it down a bit and make it smaller, only because I am painting on quite a small sheet of paper. But yeah, anyway, so I thought I would introduce myself since I may be new for some of you. My name is Darren. I'm an artist from Melbourne, Victoria, over here in Melbourne, and I basically run these live watercolor workshops each month, and basically go through my entire process, show you how to paint anything in watercolors. Most of the things that I paint are landscapes, and I do a bit of portraiture as well, but I'm just going to show you a few paintings. I hope the light is okay. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I will have to chop and change the light sometimes as well, because as you paint, the darker bits start to make the scene look a bit darker. So yeah, anyway, these are some of the paintings that I have done in the past, and this is just for you guys who maybe haven't seen my work before. Smaller paintings. Some of these are for classes. Some of these were actually done live. That one was done live the other day. Pretty sure this one there, that one was done live as well. And a little line and wash sketch. I remember I did this one live. Might have done that one live. This one, another beach scene. They don't take very long. I'm a very quick painter, and I'm going to show you some of my secrets and tips to help speed up your progress in painting. And especially when you're just starting out, you don't know the steps to complete. You don't know even things like how to mix your colors, things that are taken for granted when you're doing tutorials. And when I run these tutorials, I like to go through in real time what I'm doing, in terms of the colors I'm mixing. How am I doing it? Why am I doing it? Even the composition side of things, that's something I really like to talk about as well, and make sure that I'm explaining to you how I'm doing things and why. Because if you can understand what's going through my head, that's going to make your life so much easier when you're trying to compose your own scene. A lot of workshops and tutorials online, they'll give you a tracing template, and they'll tell you each individual step what to do. But but then when you try to apply that same process to another another scene, another photograph that you take, you're often lost. But yeah, I like to go through just my entire process so that you are able to translate that over to your own painting. So yeah, anyway, these are some of my paintings, like I mentioned before, just to show you my style. And I pretty quick tend to do these within an hour or a little bit over. So I hope let me know what you think. And also in the comments, feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The great thing about community, and we've got a couple of well, I've got a couple of groups on Facebook, is people get together, they learn to paint together, and you tend to make some friends, and it actually motivates you a lot more. Without this community, I really don't think that I would have been able to, or I've been very difficult to motivate myself to continue painting continuously. So, yeah, you know, this is another one that we painted recently as well. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let me put this away. It's getting a bit heavy. I don't know what to do with all these paintings. Alrighty. So, last night I actually did a quick little sketch, and it's nothing special. This is just a little sketch, preliminary sketch, and I did this also for the last show that we ran, the last workshop. And you can see here, I just put in some basic colors, a bit of composition stuff. I thought I'd add in some figures here, some figures in the foreground, some bigger ones as well. I was even thinking, what if I put in a larger figure here or something like that? This little bit of work here helps to give you a bit of a warm up, I guess, and know what your composition is. I was trying to work out where the shadows went. Okay, just on that side. But let me know in the comments whereabouts you're from, and also perhaps something you'd like for me to focus on today, something you'd like to learn today, so that I can do my best to try focus on, focus on what you'd like to learn. During the session, if you have any questions, put them in the chats. I've got the chats up on the screen, and I actually go through them. I try my best to answer all the questions. So definitely do your best to reach out if you need help here on the spot, and I will get back to you. Okay. Okay. Desi's asking, do I hand tear my paper? Yes. So I actually buy my watercolor paper in. I actually buy my watercolor paper in really large sheets, 56 by 76 centimeters. And what this allows me to do is, you get it in Australia, it's about $8 to $10, which is pretty cheap for such a large bit of high quality 100% watercolor, 100% cotton watercolor paper. Tear that down with a ruler, and that's how I get these smaller sheets like this. When you buy them in pads, the manufacturers tend to charge a lot more, and you can't tear them down to a size that you like. Sometimes I like to paint a bit bigger, sometimes I like to paint a bit smaller, so you can be stuck with a smaller size. So that's just my take on it. I buy loose, full watercolor sheets of paper in 100% cotton, medium texture, cold press texture. I think is the best. It's very versatile. You can do portraits, you can do landscapes, you can do botanicals, lots of stuff. Whereas if you use something like hot press paper, which is very smooth, that's going to potentially cause issues if you're a beginner. It pulls, it doesn't draw. It's a difficult paper to work with. So that's what I recommend. I'm just having a look and see what's going on in the comments. We've got lots of people here. We've got Yvette. Good to see you, Yvette. And Yvonne, I was talking to you yesterday, Yvonne. And good to see you. Who else have we got? I'm just having some trouble scrolling here. We've got Pamela. Good to see you, Pamela. We've also got Adrian. Thanks for joining, Adrian. We've got Margaret, and good to see you, Margaret. How's your weekend going? Long weekend for us here in Melbourne, which is good. Okay, and Ross McFarlane from Phillip Island. Good to see you, Ross. That's an awesome place. I went there last, maybe like January or so. Awesome. We've got Carolyn from New Zealand. We've got Sandra from Ontario. All over the world. And from Taiwan. How you going? And one of my students as well. And just trying to keep my eye on all the chats, because forgive me if I do miss out or I get to your chat a little bit late. I'm just trying to multitask, and I'm really not the best multitasker with all this stuff going on. Nerida's asking. Nerida's saying she'd like to see how I do wet and wet from when the water meets the sand. Okay, yeah, that's probably one of the most difficult bits to do. Okay, see this little tie-in area that I'm pointing at. So I haven't done it so well in this little sketch, but where the water meets the sand, and I find letting it mix together creates a much more cohesive painting rather than letting the water dry, trying to get the sand in, and you can see a sharp edge there. It just looks a bit disjointed. So I'll show you how I do that. But in short, yeah, I paint the sand first, wait for that to dry very slightly, and then I'll go in. So it's a matter of timing, and I'll explain that as we go. So let's go ahead and get started. And there's also just one more question I thought I would address. It is by Ginger. Ginger's asking, perspective help would be wonderful. Okay, perspective. And that's a good one as well. I will talk a bit about perspective, and that's mostly important when you're drawing. If you get the drawing in right, the perspective of your actual painting is going to be absolutely fine. So, righto, I'll keep my little sketch up on the side. Now, if you've got another tablet or something, keep that there with the reference photo on, or you can keep it up on another window in the corner of your computer screen. Okay, the reference, I always like to keep my reference close. I have 3 screens here, and I'll tell you what, it can be difficult to multitask at times with all these screens all over the place, but we'll get through it. And let's have a look at the reference. So I've zoomed into my reference a little bit, okay? And what you want to do is you want to find the place, the location where the sky meets the sand or the water, okay? And because I've zoomed into my reference photo a little bit, if you refer to the photo on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that line where the sky meets the earth is roughly about, I wouldn't say a third, but a little bit more than a third of the scene. So about here, okay? So I can just draw in a quick line here, okay? And just a little guiding line, and I'm using a pencil. Okay, don't go too dark. I'll probably have to draw a bit darker for you all actually, because my yeah, just on camera it's a little bit tricky for you to see unless I actually draw it darker. Okay, but you should be able to see that. So perspective wise, this is so important. This line that you put in here is going to basically be a reference point for everything else that you draw in, the houses, the people, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so there we go. And some people like to put the horizon line further up, further down. That I won't go into too much detail, but it gives you a different vantage point. So from a lower vantage point and a higher vantage point, but this is more of just like a general eye level vantage point. I think you should be okay if that horizon level is just below the center of the page. Okay, so what I want to do is just start drawing in this house. And when you look at shapes, when you look at objects, and people and steps and trees and everything like that, you want to look at them as shapes. So this house closest to us, a little beach house, it's really, if you think about it, it's just composed of triangles, rectangles. The top of the roof is a trapezoid, planks of wood. There's lots of squarish, kind of longer rectangular shapes in there. So I'm going to start off with, I always start off with this kind of triangular like roof. I'm just going to move my palette out the way. It's a bit, feel a bit cramped. And I also want to think to myself, well, I want to leave a touch of room, a little bit of room here on the right-hand side as well for the trees and stuff like that. So I'm just estimating this can be the right-hand side of this little boathouse. Has anyone ever been to Brighton here in Melbourne? Let me know. And my cousin, he came over, and I found out there's actually a Brighton in the UK, and like a beach as well, which looks kind of similar. So I had no idea that. We kind of copied, I guess, but yeah. And I think it's a really nice area, and for this particular scene here, it's definitely going to challenge you. So the top of the roof again, it's just this kind of trapezoidal like shape. Okay, I'm just going to draw that top of the roof in. Okay. Okay, extend that out a little bit. I think I might try to, I'm thinking to myself, perhaps just to put in less of those trees and stuff there, but it's up to you. Side of the building. So, in short, we've got the rooftop, which is like a triangular-like shape. Okay. And then you've got the side. Okay. Another thing that's interesting about this scene is that you've also got this sort of step, this little step that people are sitting on here. So we're going to have to imply that a touch. Comes all the way up there. Okay. Simplify this one down. These little steps that just run down the scene. Okay. Actually, they start kind of around here in the sand. Okay. Like that. Start there on the sand. And like comes up. And it's important to get the house, the one that's closest to us, important to get this one in a little bit more accurately because it's just closer. It's closer to the front of the scene. Okay. Just trying to draw in some of these steps. Essentially just got a bit of darkness here on the steps. Bit of light here as well on the top step. There is a person sitting there. I might draw that person in just a moment. Yeah, just maybe an indication of someone sitting there. Like that. Nothing too detailed. Okay. One of the things you'll notice as well is just how everything kind of overlaps. All the houses just overlap with each other. I've now noticed this house is not wide enough. Okay, I'm gonna extend this out, and this does happen as you're drawing. You'll find that perhaps there's some little inaccuracies and things. So this is the best time to sort out those things. Okay, it's a bit, yeah, it's wider. It's wider and it's quite tall actually. That. Okay, in the top of it a bit better. Okay, and you can see here on the side there's this other building in the background, this other house that just overlaps. Okay, just going to draw in that bit of this, what you call it, the rooftop. Let me know how you're going as well in the chats. I know around this time I ask people questions and you furiously drawing away. I don't want to interrupt you, but if you have questions at the moment or anything that's not so clear to you, just let me know. And I love getting feedback. It's the most important thing for me, so that I can actually deliver on this workshop. Make sure that you get something out of it and you understand what's going on, because I don't know what I don't know. All right. A lot of the times when you've been drawing and painting for a while, you do take things for granted. Okay, so you've got this house that goes over the top, the background of the other one, and this is something that you, a little technique is all making sure you draw everything in front before the stuff in the back, because that's going to make it a lot easier. You're not going to have to, if you draw the stuff in the back first, I find then you run the risk of actually drawing over the top of your previous line. So I always try to draw the stuff in the front first. I might add a bigger figure actually here in the foreground, like here in the center or something like that. We'll see how we go. I mean, there's so many steps and so many details here as well. I just want to simplify this down. That's another sort of step. These are steps that go up into the building. For that, there you've got another one. I mean, with these overlapping buildings, you really only just need to get in about, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, and the rest of them just simplify down. I'm actually drawing and painting on quite a small sheet of paper, and this makes it tricky to get in a lot of detail. And funny enough, forces you to simplify and to focus on what you think is important in this scene. Okay, that's another one. Okay, sometimes what I do also is I just shade a little bit. Like for example here, that's a bit of darkness, that's a bit of darkness there on the rooftop, with the pencil, just to remind myself these places need to be darkened, mainly for the ones in the background. This house in the foreground, I'll sort that out. And one of the things I found that was tricky was preserving some of these orangey colors and stuff on the buildings, and we'll sort that out later. Here's this longer one. It's sort of coming out. It's like a stripy kind of, what should we call it? Stripy blue and white boathouse. Okay, put that in. And look at that. It's just a square. If you can draw a square, no issues. You can get by. Okay. If you draw the shapes, they end up looking like whatever you're trying to draw. And that's the trick. Look at things as shapes. And it sounds like it's a simple task, but really it's not. It takes a lot of time. For me, it took a lot of time anyway to sink in and start to simplify things down. Begin to see things as shapes, because we don't often do this. We will often see things as a whole, because I don't think our brains are really designed initially just to break things down into just these more geometric shapes. Marla's asking, can you explain why you use the dots to draw? Okay, so it's just a little technique that I use. So say if I'm trying to draw a triangle and I'm not, entirely sure of the location or the width, the size kind of thing, I'll put in the corners of the shapes just with a little dot. And that serves as a marking, a little guideline, so then I can, in a way, connect the dots. And this is a little technique that I find really useful when I'm drawing, because if I just went in and drew that triangle, if I just went in and drew that rooftop in straight all at once, I'm probably going to make a mistake. So this is a way that I do it that makes it a bit faster, but still allows you to maintain some accuracy. And when you go on with the actual paint stuff, you don't notice any of that anyway. In the background, all you can see is these kind of white cutouts of the houses. You can see I'm using that sort of technique as well. I'm just sort of putting in the dots in the corners of these houses. But yeah, you don't need to do that. It's just something I do. Okay, there's another one there. Okay, and I'm the biggest culprit of this. I will try to draw things too quickly at times, way too quickly, and don't do that. If you need to spend more time on the drawing, you can always just pause the video and come back to it. It will still be there. Okay, but I like to spend a little bit of time, especially in these sessions, to just draw, especially the stuff in the front, a little bit more detailed and take my time with the perspective. Okay, all this here in the background. I mean, look, the houses, these beach houses, just go on for what seems to be infinity. Okay, all the way over there, and it doesn't matter. Okay, all this stuff, I'm going to actually use some gouache right in the end to bring them back. Okay, but you can see here in the edge of the water a little silhouette of the city, and this is Melbourne. All the way in the background, you can see it. And I'm, look at that. I'm just putting in some the silhouettes of these buildings here in the background. I'm just really scribbling them in. You can't really tell there's anything in there. And in the background of the buildings, you can see some of these trees and shrubs as well here. This is important, just to outline quickly, but yeah, apart from that, you don't need to do all too much. The houses are just I think the important thing, these beach houses. And let's get in some of these trees. This there's a big shrub here, And I like that light pattern behind as well. You've got a bit of shadow cast by this this little boathouse, and then you've got a a tree running up here, and I can emphasize a bit of that tree, but I will just put in some of the branches like this. Okay, with the branches. In terms of all the details on the actual boathouses, don't worry about that. We will, trust me, we'll get them in later. But you should have something like this. Okay, line of these houses, and what is left really is putting in the water line where the water meets the sand. And I'm really considering, how am I going to do this? Am I going to bring the water in a bit more, or do it just like a reference photo? We can make it come in even further. I think something like this should be okay. Something like that. Okay, just outlining the edge of the water. Okay, so I've made it come in roughly around the center of the scene, disappear off to the left. Okay, I made it come in a little bit further to the front. And what we can do here, we can put in some figures, some people. I've just drawn in this person, maybe walking along the beach here. Okay, and what I've done also is that I've made the head of these figures around about the horizon line. Okay, so this line that we drew in earlier that separates the sky from the ground, this is the level, roughly the level that you're going to draw your people, the heads of the people. And why do you do that? Well, this is going to make everything look level. It's going to make basically all the figures look like they're standing on a flat plane. If you start moving the heads of the figures too high or too low, you're going to end up with a situation where the perspective doesn't quite make sense. This person here, head's a little bit higher because sitting on a step. Okay, but for the rest of these people in here, they're going to be, even this one here. Look, I'm drawing someone here in the distance, far off, kind of walking, right? But you just make them smaller. And I guess one of the fundamentals of perspective is that everything decreases in size as you move into the distance. And as you come closer to the front of the scene, things just get bigger. Okay? So, I mean, that's the crux of it. Okay, I'm trying to draw in a leg. I've overdone it. Sometimes when you overthink things, when you overthink things, that's when you stuff it up. There we go. That's a person. Some legs. Okay, and notice how this person's bigger at the front than this one there. What else can we do? It's up to you. You can go in and really add in as much as you want in here. I mean, I can even put in another person here. Another person here just walking. This one's a bit closer, but not as close as that one. Okay. Like that. Okay. Just looking at the composition and thinking to myself, what else do I want to put in here? Some people got dogs and things like, put in a dog, some indication of a dog anyway. Like that, maybe. The tail sticking out the back. That could be a dog. Oops. It's not the best one, but that could, something like that. Yeah, there wasn't anyone swimming that day. I think there'd been a few people swimming, but it was just so cold. And we're having quite a hot winter, actually. Claire's asked, Claire's commented, how you doing, Claire? Long time watcher, thank you for coming along. And one of my friends has been actually, I think from the start, asking, would love to see your technique for capturing the yellow and brightness of the sun on the horizon and the transition into the blue sky. Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one. I can try. And I actually cut it out a bit on this particular scene, but perhaps I could. Yeah, let me let me give it a shot, Claire. At the minimum, I guess what I'll try to do at least is just to get in an indication of just some light here on the horizon line and just have it fade to blue. In terms of actually getting in the reflection in the water, there's a few techniques that you can use for that. You can mask off the area with a bit of masking fluid. You can actually go in afterwards in white gouache, but you're going to make sure it's pretty, really light white afterwards as well to get that reflection of the sun in the water. Okay, but yeah, if you're going to do that, I recommend maybe putting the sun somewhere about here around the edge. It's going to just look a bit, yeah, I think it's going to look a bit unbalanced. Okay, thank you. Let me see if there's any other questions. I've actually just stopped a little bit so I can. Yeah, some people have asked to include the sun. Include the sun for those who didn't crop. Okay. Okay. What the heck? You know what? I wasn't intending to, but let's try it. Let's give it a crack. I'm just having a look and scrolling my mouse over to that other side of the scene. So maybe we could put it like here. Put it around there. The reflection. So mark out the reflection here in the water. I'm going to do it around here. Okay. I'm going to do it around here. Okay. Just mark out the reflection in the water. So look at yellowy, really, really bright yellow. You're almost just leaving the the white of the paper. Okay. Put the sun there. I normally don't do these sun reflections, but we'll give it a crack. Yeah. What else? If we got any other questions, I think we're all good. Are you all busy drawing away? Claire says, "I think you're up for the challenge, Darren." Let's see. Let's see. Probably. Hopefully, don't stuff it up. Okay. So while I'm waiting for a few other questions, because really, like at the moment, the drawing is done. There's not anything else I really want to add in there. I mean, if you want to add in a person, another figure here on the right hand side, that's something you can do. I'll just look. I'll just add another person here just for the sake of it. Okay, maybe like a larger person walking into the scene. Yeah. But apart from that, there isn't a whole lot else to do. We've got elements in the foreground. We've got some closer figures. We've got some people in the background. Some smaller ones off in the distance. Okay. We've got houses decreasing in size as we go off into the back. Okay. We've got, what else have we got? We've got a bit of this sun reflection. We've got the water here. This is going to be tricky, this bit, because we're going to have to cut around that when we're painting. So, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot else to draw in there. Once you've when you're drawing for watercolors, I find that you want to just put in just enough detail, not too much, because the moment you start drawing too much, it becomes well, it is a painting at the end of the day, isn't it? Oh, I can fiddle around with these branches and stuff. I can make that tree look a bit more pronounced than in the reference. In the reference, that tree looks really kind of weedy, and they're kind of typical of these trees you find on the beach. Just get blown around too much and they get stunted and don't grow. But look, I want to just sort of penciled in one that's a little bit larger, this trunk like that, just for the sake of it. Yeah. And while I'm just waiting for a few other questions and getting started with the painting, I thought I'd mention as well to hang around to the end of the workshop when we're all done and you've got a painting. And if hang around to the end, I've got a little special that I run. Basically, I go through a 70 course program, and this is a program that I've been running for quite a while now, for nearly 1.5 years or so. And I get some good reviews, and a lot of my students do recommend it. So yeah, hang around to the end, just a quick little reminder. But I'm going to give you all just a moment to ask your questions, and that way we can proceed forwards. But just gonna pick something on this scene. Hang on a moment. Okay. Let me know how you're doing with the drawing as well. Just give me one moment, guys. Just having some technical stuff, weird stuff going on in the background. I'm trying to change it up a little bit. Just bear with me. Seems to be running a bit. Things seem to be running a little bit slow for some reason. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take a very quick break. Just hold on one moment. I'll let you guys finish with your drawing. I'll be back in about a minute. Hey everyone, I'm back now. Just going to answer some questions that I see here in the chats. So Elizabeth Omar is asking, how are you going to paint the sand? So we're going to paint the sand first, and I'll show you. But basically, I'm just going to add in all the lighter yellow colors, and we're using a lot of water, Elizabeth. Lots of water, only a little bit of paint because you want to keep it as light as possible. And Sweetheart Herrera says, pencil mark stays. right? Yes, keep the pencil marks there. You need them to guide you in your painting. Ross is asking, can you tell us about what brushes you use during the painting as you go? Yes, can definitely do that. I'm not sure, Ross, if you were the one that mentioned that last time, but sometimes I do forget to go through all a little bit of that. So I'll show you just some of the brushes the main brushes that I will be using. You don't need many brushes, contrary to what manufacturers might try to sell you, like a 20 brush kit or something like that. These are probably the only brushes you need. I've got a 3-set mop brush kit here. So this is a small, medium, and large mop brush. And these are essential brushes when you're beginning watercolor painting, or, for any watercolor painter. They hold a lot of paint, large belly, and a small tip. The tip allows you to cut around shapes, and the larger belly allows the paintbrush to hold a lot of paint, so you don't have to keep reloading your brush over and over again. This is a small synthetic brush, a small round brush. I have a couple of these in different sizes, and this one's like, what's this one? Size 8. And I've got another one somewhere. It's difficult to find it. It's quite small. Another one here. This is a size 1. Size 1. Okay. Small round brush and small, slightly larger round brush. These are synthetic, pretty cheap. Only cost like a couple of bucks. This one here is a synthetic flat brush. And flat brush sometimes I use to, just to paint buildings and where I want a sharper edge. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Hope that was helpful, Ross. But you can really just get by with your mop brushes and a little synthetic round brush. Okay, won't be able to raise it once the watercolor is in. Is that right? Yeah, but you won't be able to see the pencil at the end. So don't worry. Does the pencil show through? No, don't worry at all. Like, even if you see how dark I've drawn here, for me, I can't see it all too much. Some of it dissolves a little bit, so don't worry. Keep it in there. It's really important. Perspective line is for the bottom of the huts. Is on the horizon line. It's in the photo. It curves down and away. Yep. Yeah. So, like, technically it probably comes in a little bit more here at the front, but I just simplify it down. I just put it straight there, about 1/3 of the way in from the bottom of the page. Let's have a look. It'll disappear with the Desi's asking. Okay, good. I think we've sort of gone through. Yvette says, where I live, we have coconut trees. Are there any on the beaches there? No coconuts on our beaches. I think that would, I'm pretty sure people would, I don't know, complain. I can see things happening, but it'll be nice, really nice to have coconut trees here. All right, let's go ahead and get started now. I have been yapping for a little bit, and we've all come here to paint, and that's what we're going to do. So here's my palette. Okay, this probably looks like a nightmare to some of you who haven't seen my palette before. Now you're not going to need all these colors. Okay, these are just colors that I've picked up over the years. I've got a bit of quinacridone yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is good. I've got a bit of buff titanium, which is an off-white color. I've got a couple of oranges, quinacridone orange, permanent red, pyrrole red, sorry. Cerulean blue, I'm going to top that up a little bit. These ones don't worry about. They're kind of like a teal lavender color. Ultramarine blue, okay. We've got a couple of browns, a green. These are all purples and like a black neutral tint, okay. All you're going to need for this is a bit of yellow. If you've got a yellow ochre, that's good. If you've got a bit of this buff titanium or a white color, you can mix them together just to create a more sandy sort of color. I've got a bit of red and a bit of cerulean blue or ultramarine blue. That's all you're going to need, okay? Because you actually can mix a dark color by mixing all your primaries together, your red, blue, and yellow. You can also, for me, I have this color here, which is neutral tint, which is a convenience color. It's basically just a gray, all right? So I will just grab a quick tube of cerulean blue, because I hadn't actually topped this up before I realized last night I've run out. Cerulean blue. I like to use this color for skies. Okay, so let's get that palette on the side. And you can see that the mixing well's also got lots of area for mixing. And that's why I use a larger palette. It makes things easier. If you don't have a palette at home, just use a plate, just a porcelain plate, and put your paints on there and you're going to be completely fine. Okay, alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put in the yellows of the scene, all the warm colors. And we're going to just also keep in mind this sunlit area here. I mean, it's really bright, really bright. I'm just comparing. It's really the lightest area of the scene. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pick up a bit of yellow ochre. Let's mix up some yellow ochre here on the palette. And we're talking about almost 90% water. Okay, really, really light colors. Okay, mostly just water here. And you're going to go in and perhaps put a bit of quinacridone yellow that I'm going to use for the side of this boathouse. Okay, come down. All this is just nice warm colors in this scene. You don't need much at all in terms of paint. You just want to use 90% water. Okay, this is going to really help preserve the light. Okay, and at this point, you know, a lot of people think that it is just everything just looks too weak. It's too light. It's no good. But you must persist. And continue on. Okay, some more of this. I'm using also, if you notice, on the sides of the buildings, a bit of more concentrated yellow. So I can just preserve a bit of that. Yeah, just a little bit more of that yellowy color. Okay. But the buildings off in the background, really they just have this sort of milky white color. Can't really tell too much. Okay. Go over the top of them like that. And I like to paint all the yellow parts first and the warmer parts first because it just makes it easier, because I tend to accidentally mix in some greens if I'm not careful. Okay, so bit of that. These houses in the background, look at them. They're just tiny little houses, and I just need a little bit of dab of paint here and there. Okay, as they recede into the distance. Now, let's work a bit on the sand. Okay. What I'll do actually is we'll do the sun. Let's do this sun bit. Okay. And the sand at the same time. We'll be able to do this pretty quickly. Okay. A bit of maybe some quinacridone yellow. Really like a light yellow. Just almost the it's really the lightest part of the scene. Okay, a little bit of that in there. Just using just a tiny little bit of water. Get that reflection running through the water like that. Okay, it's gonna be a tricky one. And let's go in around the edges. Let's have a look. What does it kind of look like there? You've got a bit of pinky kind of color. So I'm mixing up a little bit of red with the yellow. And I will just highlight this horizon line with a touch of red, diluted down red, an orangey sort of color. Okay. Just gonna get some of this pinkish color running through in the background like that. Okay. And this will fade up into the blue. Okay. Put in a little bit of yellow for these trees and stuff in here as well, because we need some of that light for later on. Okay. All this is still wet, and you know, a lot of people get worried painting wet into wet. It's terrifying sort of thing when you start painting, because you have this sense of losing control. You don't know what's going to happen. And but you need to do it. That's how you get in all these beautiful effects. I'm going to slant the paper upwards like this. Cerulean blue. Okay, mix up some of this cerulean blue here on the palette. It's a granulating, lovely granulating blue. Okay, I start off the top here. I just want to test it, but I can blend this in. Okay, a bit of this cerulean blue. It's a lot of water. It's still that 10% water. Sorry, 10% paint and the rest of it water. Okay, and I'm slanting the paper upwards just so it doesn't go down into the houses and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm just cutting around the top of these houses there. All right, that's all we need. Just cut around. Some of it might blend and mix together. Don't worry about that at all. Okay. That. I'm going to make the top of the scene just a little bit darker as well. So using a little more paint up the top. And sometimes if you've got yourself a bit of ultramarine blue, I find that helps to darken the top of the scene, create a little bit more darkness up there. Okay, so that you got this little bit of this faded effect. Okay, some ultramarine blue. I'll just pick up some of this and dab a bit of it in there. And it's up to you as well whether you want to do things like include clouds. Some people like them, some people don't. But if you want to include clouds, I'll just pick up a bit of grey or something like that, and I'll just dab in a bit of this paint while it's all drying. I don't want it to be too, just a bit of like a greyish cloud there or something like that. Maybe another one here while the paint is still kind of drying. Okay, cloud here and there. I don't want them to look like storm clouds or anything like that. Just a bit of, I don't know, just like a little greyish cloud there in the distance. Almost like a bit purplish actually. So I've got some purple paint left over on the palette. But because look, the paper is still wet, it goes in nicely and mixes around. Doesn't create too much of a scene. Okay, best time to do it. Right, kind of looks all right to me now. These clouds, leave them. Let's go into the sand. Now, this is the part where everyone was asking questions about the sand and how am I going to paint the sand? How am I going to paint the water? So we're going to do this all in one go, and we've got to be quick with it as well. So a bit of this yellow. I've got yellow ochre. The sand is this color. It's a very lighter sort of, it's not dull. It's kind of slightly dulled down, this yellow. So I've got some of this other color as well. It's just a bit of buff titanium. I'm going to mix that in, buff titanium with a bit of yellow ochre. You don't need buff titanium, but if you've got a bit of white or something like that, mix that in with your yellow, and that will create a bit more of this sort of sandy kind of look. I'm just going near the water, the area of the water here, okay? Referring back to the reference, I'm just checking as well. Okay, good. It's really quite a big contrast there. I'll probably have to go in with some gouache later for that reflection of the sun in the water. Okay. There. And this is also blending in with the buildings a little bit because the buildings are still wet. Cutting around the figures a touch as well, as you can see. Okay. Some more, bit more yellow, bit more yellowy tinge in the sand. Yeah, can just add in a bit more color, especially near to the front of the scene. That's good. But you're really using so much water in here. It's really light. So you want a lot of light colors in there. Okay. For the footprints and stuff like that, I'm going to simplify this down and just use an old brush, and I'll cover the top of the scene slightly so that I don't get, oops, it's almost dried. It should be okay. Just leave it like that. And I'm going to pick up an old brush. Okay. 2 brushes, and you do this sort of tapping technique. So I'm going to pick up some brown and grey mixed together, whatever I've got here on the palette, just a bit brown and grey or whatever. A bit of yellow mixed in there as well. Okay. And I'm just going to tap this in while the paint is still wet. Okay. You can maybe pop in a few of these other ones here and there, but this is just going to create a bit of interest in the sand. It's kind of like the quick way of doing things. Okay, I don't want to spend too long doing this. Okay, and it's really important to cover the top of the page when you do this as well, because this is an absolute mess at times. Create a huge mess. Another thing you can do is just flick the brush. If you don't like tapping the brush, you can just pick up a bit of leftover paint, and I'll show you what you can do. Just do this. Just flick the paint in like that. Okay. All right. So take that off. Starting to do something. I'm going to put in some of the water now. Let's get in, because all this should kind of be dried, almost dried. The water, I'm going to make it darker than the sky. It is actually slightly darker than the sky. The camera's blown everything out a bit. Okay. What have we got? Smaller brush. Smaller. Try to find it. Oh, it's disappeared on me. Here it is. Bit of this one here. Let's pick up some cerulean blue. And I'm going to mix the cerulean blue with a bit of ultramarine blue. Okay, let's just put that in. Let's see how that looks like. Good. Yeah. Okay. There we are. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in quickly. Okay. Around the sunset, just sort of cutting around that little reflection in the water. You see that little sunset there? Okay, you're probably gonna get some sharp edges on it. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Just as long as you got a touch of that reflection there. And coming down. And in a way, I think I've almost changed the feel of the scene by doing this. People just near the water. And this is this sort of tie-in zone that someone was talking about before. How do you do this part where the water meets with the sand? Because the sand has been drying for a little bit, now what you can do is, you notice I'm just combining it. I'm just touching the brush onto the sand a little. Yeah, look at that. Just feathering it into the sand, and it will naturally mix together and create that kind of tie-in area. Okay, I'm going to do it quick, like that. And there we go. We've got a bit of that water coming into the sand. Okay, and it also helps if you're using yellow ochre, a yellow that's not too vibrant, because otherwise you're going to get a green that looks a bit disjointed. Okay, so look, I mean, we have got in decent sort of scene here with all the lighter colors. Let me take a drink of water. And at the moment, it doesn't really look like much. But stick with me, okay, because we haven't even got in any of the darker colors yet. Once we get the darker colors in, it's going to make sense. Okay, this is the stage a lot of people miss out on in terms of waiting to that, getting in all those lighter colors and making sure you've got in some of the darker ones after. People look at their paintings at this stage and think it just doesn't look like anything. It's not. There's no contrast. There's nothing and they give up. But you've got to let this dry. I'm going to use a hairdryer to shorten the speed. There we go, giving it a dry, and I'll address some of your questions while I let you all catch up. We've got nearly 80 people watching in total. You guys are doing really good to make it this far, and stick with me because we're gonna get in the rest of the details in just a moment. Let's have a look at the Jan. Jan's asking, does the pencil mark show through the paint? Does it detract from the finished painting? No. So we will go over with a lot of the darker colors and the darker areas in here. So it should be fine. A lot of professional watercolor artists, well, the majority of them, they have a pencil sketch and they keep it in there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Any other questions? Actually missing some of them. That's weird. Brush brand. The brush brand I'm using is Meeden. Yeah, look, it doesn't really matter so much. This was a 3-piece brush set that I got from Amazon. Somewhere it's linked somewhere in the description of the video. If the pencil dissolves, does it change the color? So that's Sandy's asking that question. So no, in short, it doesn't. Oh. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm just taking a look at my scene at the moment, and thinking to myself, what else can we do? But look, let's firstly put in some colors. I'm going to add in some colors for the figures. This is sort of fun. We can have people that are just. I'm going to put in a bit of pinkish color there for the legs of this person. It's just really just a lot of watered down colors, the skin tones, and you can use all types, whatever skin tone you want. I tend to use a mixture of brown, yellow, red, sometimes a little bit of blue for darker skin tones as well. I will just drop in a little bit of color there. And there, these people can be wearing shorts or something like that. Bit of color for the heads. Tiny bit of red can help. Touch of this red. And look over. The perspective of this building is actually it's just slightly off. It's slightly off. I should have made it come down into the ground a little bit more. So I am thinking probably to extend this building down a little bit, but we'll see how we go. It's not too noticeable. So I may not do anything to it. Okay, so we're gonna put in all the shadows and mix up a shadow color. Okay, everything should be dry at this point. Don't go into this until it's completely dry. Really important. So if your painting hasn't dried yet, wait for it to dry. You can pause the video and you can come back to it later. I've just used the hair dryer, but if you've got a hair dryer, use that. Speeds things up so much. And look, I don't find that it degrades the quality of the painting at all, as long as you let it dry a bit naturally on its own. Because if you blast it with the hair dryer up close while the thing is completely wet, you're gonna mess it up. Okay, I'm mixing up a color here, and it's just kind of a gray. So if you've got a red, you've got a blue, you've got a yellow, mix them together, and you can get a nice gray color. And I'm putting in a bit of a bluish bias to it, slightly cooler bias to it. Okay. All right. Okay. And this is also a bit of a tricky part, because we would like to get in a bit of these sort of details on the building. So I mean, even you could just put in a few brush strokes for the like that. These will probably disappear anyway underneath the shadows, but there are tiny little indications on the buildings, some other colors and things like that. I mean, these buildings here in the background, they're more bluish, in fact, and there's little bits of this stuff running through. But I'm not too fussed as to getting in all of these colors, but I want to preserve some of this blue, especially on this building here, because I tend to find when I go in with that shadow color, just can at times just block out all the colors in the background. So if I can put in a touch of blue here to begin with. Okay, this brush is a little bit tricky to use. Let me just grab another smaller flat brush like that. Okay, I'm going to go back to that color, that gray color that I've mixed up. Okay, and we're going to simplify this down. I've got the gray and a bit of blue. Okay, and I'm just going to go into the top of this roof and put it in. It might actually be better if I use a smaller round brush. It's because when I'm painting so small, it's actually quite difficult to do this. There we go, rooftop. Color in that rooftop, and the proportion of paint I'm using, it's probably about 20 to 30% paint. Okay, because it is a darker paint and the rest of it just water. Bit of this blue color on the side of that building just coming down. I'm also a bit wary not to make it too overly vibrant as well. Okay. The rooftop of this building, let's get that in. And I've cut around that little figure. Can you see that person that's sitting on the step? I've tried to indicate that person. Okay, a building there in the background. The rooftop here. You're really looking at that reference photo and trying to find yourself the darkest parts of the painting. Okay, like that. Still this same grayish blue color I've mixed up. I'm wanting to mute it, just mute that color down a little bit so that it's not too dark. The side of this building, I'm really just tempted just to go in all at once and just go over the top of it with a light wash. This and the side of that building in. Okay, I'm actually going to probably drop in some other colors down the side of this building as well in a moment when it's nearly dried. But this was the point where I was kind of deciding to myself whether I want to lower this building down a touch more like this. Just try it. I'll lower it down a bit more. Yep. Okay, like that. Which means I have to shift these steps as well. Okay, And it's about finding that large shape, that large kind of shadowy shape. Okay, large shadow shape. This connects with the steps here. Difficult to really get that in accurately with the larger brush that I was using before. Just try again. Okay, something like that. And you got that shadow actually running all the way to the right hand side of the scene. And even behind the this little house, there's actually darker shadows behind. I'm going to save that till later and just continue working on these other houses. Okay, the rooftops are darker. So if you notice, a lot of that pencil stuff has just disappeared now. You can't see it so much. Once you put in the darker bits, there we are. Bring that down. And you're also cutting around, you're leaving the yellow showing through, which is so crucial in order to emphasize the light source coming from the left. As we move into the distance, one thing you'll notice is that the colors become a bit more desaturated, faded out. The buildings become difficult to place and see. Okay. Another thing I want to do is in the distance, you know, there's these little buildings. Can you see them? Just these kind of, it's like a silhouette, Melbourne silhouette kind of thing. I'm just gonna put in something like that there. Okay. Doesn't have to be much. Just a little indication of the city there in the distance. Okay, like that. There is also, of course, the trees and stuff like that. I'm just going to pick up a bit of green, tiny bit of green. I'm going to dull that down with some gray. Green and gray, mix that together so that it's not too saturated. Okay. And some, you know, also you can mix oppositional colors together, complementary colors together. I mean, it creates a duller version, so you can add a bit of red into the green, and it will dull that green down. And you know, you'll notice just behind all these houses, the background, all these like trees are actually so dark and creating a little contrast. And I will do that. I will just feather in a bit of this detail for the trees. Okay, not too much. Just use that to help me cut around these houses. Need to use that to cut around the houses, these ones here especially. Okay, you can see it here as well. So separating out the houses. Negative painting, it's basically what we're doing here. We're cutting around the lighter sections of the paper. Okay. I don't want to overdo it though. Just feather off some of this stuff. I've probably gone overboard with that section, but it doesn't matter. Okay, some trees and things there. Starts looking okay, I'll just leave it. Okay. But it creates a sharper contrast behind the houses, and I'll do it here as well. Okay. Be careful because there is a bit of light also, a bit of golden light that's hitting some of these trees. So I will a bit more darkness here. There, a bit of this shadow cast by this house. And coming across, it's quite dark with shadow even, like that. I want to leave some light as well on the tree itself even. You know, this is just that tree that I was painting before, and changed it a little there. This contrast should probably be a little darker in areas. It makes a touch of blue in there as well to darken off this shadow. These other little branches and things running up in there as well, I can just indicate some smaller trees and features like that. Okay, I want to leave a bit of that golden light shining through. And notice how all these shadows, I've done them all in one go. Yeah, I've done it all in one go. I've not thought to myself, well, we'll do, you know, you're basically connecting up all the shadows so that it's one big shape. Even the darker shadows in the background are part of this whole general shape that we're doing. Okay, now the people, let's put in some colors for the people. I don't think I was meant to do this before, but I forgot about it. I'll put in a bit of blue for this person. Yeah, that's okay, a bit like that. Let me just muddy it up a little. Okay, yep. Okay. Maybe a bit more blue for this one, the shirt or whatever. You can also leave some of them just with a white shirt. Okay, this can be like a bit of a contrast, and just get the hand, like a hand coming out, like an indication of the person's arm, just swinging forwards like that or something like that. Okay, and at this point, you are thinking of shadows for the figures. I will put the shadows in. Let's just do the shadows. Same color, I'm using a bit of blue and gray mixed together. Okay, and how are we going to do this? Here, maybe. Put a bit of darkness at the base of the feet. Some of these people are wearing actually some darker, like jeans or something, yeah, like this person there. So I'll just get in a bit of darkness there, connect up at the base, and create the shadow running to the right. Okay. The legs just help to, the darkness on the legs for that figure helps to bring, anchor that person to the ground. But I won't do it for all of them, just for this person here. See, a little bit of color there. This person here, you know, then there needs to be some shadow here running across the ground as well. So let's just connect the legs up like that. There we go. That's a shadow. Okay, quick little shadow. The light source is coming from the left, running to the right. So naturally, you're probably going to get a bit of a shadow on the back of some of these people, like here on the back of the legs. But just be careful when you're doing this. You don't want to overemphasize any of these shadows. Okay, there's that person in the foreground. Let me just darken off a bit there. We've got this person here as well. And I'll just touch on a bit of color at the base of the legs. Okay, like that. And again, just perhaps get a shadow running to the right, like this. There we are. This one was a bit fiddly. I spent too much time mucking around with it so it doesn't look as nice. We've got another figure here, you know, legs, just a touch of darkness on the legs there, I'm thinking, like that. Connect the legs up and shadow like that. Whoops. Okay, this looks all right. This one here, connect the legs up, shadow running to the right again. I mean, that person's actually on the water, so it's probably not going to show through as much. I mean, there's also people here in the background. That, I mean, yeah, you can just get the legs in and little touch of the body, something like that. I'm not fussed. Make up a few more people as well. Run, you know, coming through the scene. Okay. Just we're gonna put someone here, and just standing up, looking to the right. There. These little things that you'll pick up as you go along and think, well, I've not forgot to put that figure in or whatever. You can always add them in afterwards. I'll leave that. Just leave the clothing of this person white. Looks nice. Contrasting with the water a bit. But you can already see things are starting to kind of come together. Okay. Starting to come together. It's not perfect, but I think it sort of looks like a beach scene already. What do you all think? And if you have questions as well, leave it in the chats. I will get back to you. Loy, Loy is asking, does the GSM of the paper affect the painting? So the GSM of the paper, yes, it can. So it really depends, but usually if you have higher GSM papers, they're able to absorb water better. It doesn't warp as much. Okay, so yeah, I've used papers that are like 125 GSM and less. They're good. Like this one, for example, is a little sketch I did before. I think that's like 90 GSM or something like that. But you can only put in a couple of washes. You can't put too much water on there. It buckles, it warps, it gets a bit annoying. So you've got to paint quickly, and you can only paint really in 2 layers. Whereas if you're using a 300 GSM paper like this, you can continually add in more and more layers over the top, and you're not going to have any issues. So I hope that answered your question. Um, Laurie's asking, what paper surface do you prefer to use, smooth or the rough one? Yeah, so the medium textured or rough paper, I really recommend that for you guys if you're doing landscapes and things like this. So much easier to paint on, and you can get yeah, just more of the paper showing through when you see these little bits here with the white showing through the paper. Little rough textures here and there. That's perfect for landscapes. Okay, but yeah, I also do use hot press paper. You can do landscapes on hot press paper, but it just requires more skill because it doesn't dry evenly. You get the paper buckling a lot, so you've got to know how to mop up these areas that pull, and yeah, you get a different look to the painting as well if you're using smooth paper. Colors appear a lot more vibrant. For sure, they appear a lot more vibrant, but you do get more blooms and just artifacts. So you have to put up with that as well. Um, Debbie's, sorry, Desi's saying yours looks like a beach scene. Not sure what mine looks like. Okay, stick with me. Stick with me. Look, I think if you can make it all the way through to the end, you've done a great job. You know, you have to go through and paint and create a lot of paintings that you may not necessarily like in order to internalize and understand the process. And it's just brush mileage, basically, as they call it. It's just basically getting experience. And one day, it just becomes like second nature, and you don't have to really think anymore. Okay. So really, at this stage, we've got these essentials of everything we want in here. I like to, in the end, just drop in some extra details, darkness, and things like that to finish it off. Okay, so for instance, we've got, this rooftop here. I will just put in a little line like that. The rooftop underneath the top of that section there, maybe just indicate some more darkness. And also I've noticed that the roof is actually a bit darker. Can you see that? The roof is actually a bit darker than the rest of the boathouse. So I'm going to darken that marginally like this. Okay, that's going to, I think it's just going to make it look better. Same for this one here. Little touch-ups, tiny little touch-ups, but don't use too much paint. Just enough of it. Okay. What else have we got? Same thing here. This rooftop, you can. It's just training yourself to know to identify different values. And when I say values, I'm talking about how light and dark something is. I talk about this a lot in in other courses that I run as well. And I'll talk about my paid program later on. If you want to hang around for that, it'd be great if you could. But basically, when you look at a scene, there's a whole variety of tones, okay, and values, and you have to make sure you get in all of those values, because if you don't, your painting looks flat, and that's something that a lot of beginners complain about. They're like, my painting, it doesn't look three-dimensional. It doesn't look like what I'm trying to paint. And that's because you need to have a combination of all these. See, for example, the legs of these figures, darker than well, not all of them, but for some of them, darker than the sand. So it helps them to pop out, okay? Rooftop darker here. Same sort of deal. We did talk about putting in some orange or something in here. I'm going to try. I've got a bit of orange here on the palette. It's going to be a very dulled down sort of orange because it's going over the top, but I can just do something like that. Got to be quick with it. Yeah, just a bit over the top, showing through. Okay. You may not even want to do that. I tend to try to desaturate a lot of my colors, actually. On the side of the boathouse as well, you do have things like tiny details. Look at that, just a little bit there indicating the edge of that roof there. Coming down, there's like a door or something. See that door? Just an indication of that there. Could be a door. There's a figure here. I forgot to put in this person. Put in some legs, just indication of the legs or something like that, and the shadow forming behind this person as well, going up into that. That's very not so apparent, but yeah, something, that's for sure. I can probably put in a bit of gouache at the end to try to bring that figure out a touch as well. But really, like at this point, you are just sharpening up. You're just finding bits and pieces that you want to sharpen up, details that you'd like to bring out in the rest of your scene. A lot of this is all. I mean, the hard work is done. This is just tidying up and adding in final details. And if you have put in the main shadows and retain the lighter values, this is just icing on the cake. And people spend a lot of time detailing and are often disappointed at the results. And the reason for that is the nuts and bolts of the actual painting, which is these shadows and lighter colors we painted before, are just not in there. So focus on those first two washes, and when you come to this stage here, it becomes a lot easier because it's just refining and detailing, and that's it. Refining and detailing. Hard work's already been done. Okay. Maybe put a separation in between some of these houses and the background's tiny little separation. And notice how I'm going backwards and forwards. I've got a little towel on the side, and I'm dabbing my brush on the towel to remove some of the paint. And I'm doing that so that it doesn't make a mess. It doesn't create too much of a impression on the paper. Dry brushing. Okay. Okay. We're putting some hair. No one's got any hair in these. I don't have any hair here. A bit of hair for this person here. There we go. And make it a bit longer. Yeah, why not? There we are. Bit of hair. Okay. Where you put the hair is important as well because, for example, if I cover most of the head, it will look like the head is facing forwards. Okay. Just putting a bit here on top like that for this fella. It will look like he is kind of just walking forwards. If I cover the entire head, But if I just cover the top of the head and leave the face red, it will look like he's walking towards us. So there's a lot of these little things. A lot of these little things you got to keep in mind that make a difference. You know, these little details, but the little details will only make sense once you have the big details in right, like I mentioned before. So if you get frustrated at the small details, don't worry. The focus all the time is on the big shapes. You know, these houses, the line work, the shadows. You know, what am I doing here? This is just part of that tree that I got in before as well. I thought I'd just leave that. Okay, I've got a bit of white gouache. I'm going to pick that out. You know, grab some straight out of the tube. White gouache, this stuff here. So people often ask about this, and it's opaque watercolor paint. Just opaque watercolor paint, and it's great for putting in some final little highlights, things that you might have missed out or gone over the top of in too dark colors and stuff like that. So we're gonna grab that, and we'll have a bit of a play around and see if we can bring back some highlights. I don't see too much that I want to change around anyway. After the show, I sometimes go through and just continue detailing a little bit. But really 90% of the work is already done for a nice little scene like this. And you don't have to spend a whole day painting. You know, I think that's the great thing about watercolors. You can just get in a nice spontaneous painting like this without much effort at all. I mean, once you've, of course, worked on some of the techniques and feel more confident, see, look, that's a bit of gouache for the head of this figure, white gouache. I just want to bring out tiny little white highlights. You got to be careful of putting too much. Look at that on the shoulders of the figures here. You know, put in a bit of white on the shoulders. Okay, like that. Maybe on the steps as well. Just a little bit of white on some parts of the steps. This person here sitting on the step like that. You know, you might get a lighter highlight on the rooftops and areas there. And really, I really like to do this just at the end to bring out tiny little contrasts and highlights. This brings out the sparkle of the scene. Just tiny little bits of things like that. Okay, another one, a little bit for this figure here in the front. Okay. Not only that, we do have you know, these boathouses here in the background. Remember how I said we're going to put them in with a bit of gouache? So what I'm doing here is just a touch of that, adding in a little touch of white gouache. See if we can bring out a little bit of these houses here in the background. You can't really see them, they're tiny. Okay, but I'm just feathering in a bit of white there. Okay, if you really want to as well, you can even put in a boat, a yacht or something here in the distance. I didn't consider this before, but why don't we just try put maybe some kind of boat or something here. Can we? I may regret this later. Something like that. That can be a boat. We're getting a boat, yacht here as well. Another one, because it was. I mean, it is a nice. Was a nice day at the time. Little yacht. I reckon I'll need to rejig that. Add in a bit of shadow or something at the base as well later. Okay. Touch and go. Touch and go. A bit of Bit of a lighter white in here, maybe. Okay. We're getting there. We're really getting there. We're almost done. Perhaps I will add in a few little quick strokes of like bluish color in the water. Oops. I did not want that to happen. Let me just see if I can soften this. Did not want that to happen. Really just dry brush in a bit of blue. It would have been nicer if I had done some of these little waves, actually, the ones that I'm trying to do now. I've done them earlier while the paint was still wet. I just want to add in some like kind of ripples and stuff in the water, but I don't want it to overwhelm what's going on. Okay, so just, can you see what I'm doing? Just kind of fiddling the brush around the surface of the water. That. Just give it a bit more, I don't know, bit of something in there. I'm hoping it will emphasize this light in the water as well. This reflection of the sun. I think it's turned out okay. Right. You know, sometimes on the beach as well, you might get little bits of seaweed and stuff that just washes up, so you can just scumble the brush around on the surface like that and just get in a bit of that stuff. I don't want to overdo it though. Something like that maybe. Okay, good. These boats, a little bit of darkness at the base of them can help to anchor them to the water. Just put that in, a little bit of darkness at the base. I wasn't intending to add them in, but why not? Why not? Oh, another thing we could probably do is create some reflections of the masts in the water. I thought about that. Yeah, I'll just show you how to do that. I've got a little brush. Do I have a little brush somewhere? Bit of white gouache. Just a little bit of this sort of reflection like that of the mast. And it kind of mirrors the reflection, you know, like the idea of this reflection up the top as well. You know, if I can drag a bit of this white down the page, like in the background as well for these houses. Now that it's not present in the reference photo, but don't know, just something I thought I'd do. Good. So let's take this off and see what it looks like. Let me know how you've gone. I'm really curious to hear how everyone has done today. It's been a lot trickier, this scene, than I thought it would be. Sometimes you look at a reference photo and you think it's going to be a breeze, but I'm sure you've all learnt a lot through this session. I mean, there's so much in here. There's people, there's houses, there's shadows, we've even put some boats in. We've got trees, really everything in here. But we've painted it in about an hour and a bit. And you've all made it to the end, which is really impressive. It's really should congratulate you to make it through to the end, because, you know, often you'll be halfway through a painting and you can think to yourself, it's not working out, I just want to stop. But let me know how you've gone. I really want to hear, really curious to hear what you guys think. And while you're here as well, and while I'm sort of waiting for your answers to come back, I am going to switch over and just talk about, basically just talk about this course, this program that I've had running now for a year and a bit. And, you know, I've linked it in the description of the video as well. But yeah, it will only take about 10 minutes. So hold on for one moment. I'll just switch myself over. Okay, so you should still be able to hear and see me. This is a 70 course program. I've been running it. Yeah, I've running it for a while now. These are some of the projects that are included, and really of my best work. And I run through a lot of my process in more detail, as well as other topics like values. And one of the things I found when I was learning painting is that it was just so difficult to find a tutorial that actually goes through the process of how to paint. A lot of assumed knowledge out there when you watch videos, they're sped up. You often have to go through YouTube. And for me, I always want to find the quickest video that gets me the result that I need. And with a painting, it's not the case where you can just watch a 2-3 minute video that's sped up and understand what to do. You've really got to watch in real time, like you have today, and get some real time advice on what to do and why I'm doing it. So yeah, layering, depth, and perspective is something I really like to cover, and it's something, if you sign up today for my program, that's those are topics I cover in every sub course in this program. And being able to drastically improve your paintings as well, as soon as you understand this process, is yeah, it's going to save you a lot of time. And this is me, you know, this is me. This was a painting I did in 2014, and I mean, the stick figures, I didn't know what I was doing. This is something I did about a year or so ago. And the remarkable thing is that these took around the same time. This took me an hour and a bit to do. You know, amazing, right? And this same sort of deal. So if you have the confidence, once you have the confidence to know what you're doing, what steps to paint first, like the light and then the darks, how to draw. And drawing is something I also cover in all the videos in this program. You'll be able to create something like this quite easily. And often you got to think back to, why did you start painting in the first place? You want to feel confident and relaxed. And for a lot of beginners and students who are starting out, it's common to feel a bit stressed when you are learning how to paint, because you just don't know what you're doing. So like I said, with my process, you're going to be guided and know from the get-go how to find a reference photo. All the reference photos are provided for you anyway, but how to disassemble that reference photo into shapes, how to draw it accurately, how to select colors that will accurately reflect that reference photo, or the image that you have in your mind. You don't always have to just copy the reference photo. In fact, I actually discourage it. I think you should add a little bit of yourself into your work. And if you do that, you'll be able to create some beautiful paintings, ones that you'll be able to show off to your friends and family. And of course, connect to your creative side. I mean, how often do we get to actually be creative in our day-to-day lives? It just seems to be the case that as most people get older, we tend to forget about that side of ourselves. And I think it's such an important aspect, and having the confidence to pick up that brush and know what you're doing, that really will go a long way in helping you discover that creative side of yourself. So these are some of the topics that I cover, and I survey my students, and this is what most of them struggle with. And I cover all of these topics in my program. So painting with confidence, I mentioned that before. Understanding perspective in drawing, a big one as well. If you haven't realized already, we spend a lot of time on the drawing, and if you've got a good drawing, then your painting's going to turn out fine. Timing. So when to do things, like when we're painting the water, when we're waiting for things to dry, such a crucial aspect, because if we didn't let it dry, we'll just all run together and it'll create a big mess. Brush techniques, water control as well. So basically, it's just talking about what brush to use, how much water to use, how to use that brush as well. Do you dry that brush off and then continue on, or do you fully load that brush so it's completely wet? Super important. There's so many variables in watercolors that you need to be aware of when you're painting. But once you know all these variables and know how to use them together, it becomes like driving a car. So quite automatic. And that's why sometimes I have to really pay attention to explaining what I'm doing, reminding myself that as a beginner, you don't know these things. Tone and values, what I mentioned before, the most magic component in watercolor painting. You know, making sure that you're preserving light and creating elements of darkness. Seeing these sort of paintings here, these examples in the background, there's a large array of values, lights, darks, everything in between as well. And that's what creates detailed and convincing paintings, even if you've just got two tones. That one's almost got just two tones. Layering, painting with just two colors, two layers. Often I use two layers plus a bonus layer, like I did today with some finishing touches. Choosing colors as well. You don't need 100 different colors. If you see today, we've only used a few colors. And most manufacturers will say you need 20, 30, 40 different colors, but you really don't. If you've got 3 good quality artist grade watercolor paints, that's all you need. So I'll talk about that in each of these videos. Vision as well, why it's important. So when we started this whole session, I talked about what we're going to do with the reference photo. It's very rare that you find a reference photo that is perfect in your eyes. You often have to modify components. Sometimes you think to yourself, I just don't like that house, or I don't like the way that person's standing, this and that. That's vision, coming up with your own unique composition, making it your own, and truly being proud of it rather than basing your success on copying a reference photo. And of course, if you are looking at a reference photo, if you are painting a particular scene, you want it to look like that. But also at the same time, you want to know how to change it around. So anyway, what's included, this is what you get. You get 70 courses with this whole program, unlimited instant access as soon as you sign up, hundreds of hours of paint-along demonstrations. I've also got all the ads-free live recorded workshops included as well. So there's, I don't know how many there, probably 50 or something different workshops. This is one that's included. It's a line and wash scene. And you can learn at your own pace. So you can pause, rewind, watch it in your own time. And I think that's crucial because everyone learns at a different speed. Okay? Step by step, narrated in real time. So it's the same style like I've run through today, but probably in more detail because obviously today I've got to multitask and I'm not the best, multiple things going on at the same time when I'm painting. So that's what to expect. Here's some of the paintings that are included. And Pamela's just commented, one of my students says, I'm up to 95% of Darren's course. I can see how much I've improved. It's well worth it. Thanks, Darren. Thank you, Pamela. And you've really done a great job. You've done so many of the projects in there, and I see you posting all the time. So you've improved a really great deal since you've started. Here's some more, some nature scenes and portraiture as well. And, that's my style. My style is quite loose and relaxed. I like to get in details, but I'm also in ways an impatient person. I want to get to the result as quick as I can, but still, with decent quality. And I like the fact that I'm not constrained by the reference and feeling pressured to get in exactly what I see. And based on my personality, this is just how my courses and how my paintings have turned out. And something I talk about as well is creating your own style. So these are some more line and wash paintings. Like spend a bit more time on them and the drawing, and they become more detailed. But for the most part, I spend about an hour on each of them. This is a included module on house and building portraits, how to draw different features of buildings, create shadows. See these values here that creates the darker values create shadows and create a more realistic looking scene. That's a scene of Melbourne, I think. Yep, I think that's on Elizabeth Street. A few more examples here, and these are just some of what's included. Okay, let me just click through, get through to the end. Um, so these are my teacher ratings, a few teacher ratings that I have available as well. I teach on a variety of different platforms online, not just on Facebook, but I partner with a few different companies and consistently getting high ratings. So that's from one of my platforms. I think I get about 100 new students each month on this particular platform. But the link in the description to my 70 course program is linked directly to me, and it makes it easy for me to actually modify everything in there. Um, connect directly with my students as well. So it's my personal platform, and you get probably the best value out of it because there's like has everything that I've created. So let's have a look. So if you sign up today, there's a few bonuses that I'm going to include. So first bonus is that I'm going to review your paintings. Okay, so really importantly, when you start painting, it's important to get some tailored feedback. And the reason why is so that it saves you time. It allows you to identify what have you done well, what could you improve on, and this allows you to focus on areas because it's very difficult when you start out looking at your painting and thinking, what, I don't know, something doesn't look right. I'm not sure what it is, but it just doesn't look right. It's very difficult to identify um, technical issues and things like that. So I go through and I give you some constructive feedback, and this allows you to think like me and get sort of experienced watercolors behind your back so that you kind of know um, faster how to focus on which areas now to progress. So second bonus, you also get access to a private Watercolor Mentor Academy group. So this is a group. I have 3 or 4 different groups on Facebook, and the Watercolor Mentor group, Watercolor Mentor Community Group, that's a free group, and that's got about I think 3,000 nearly 3,000 members in it. I've got another one that's got nearly 200,000 members. Those ones are both free, but you also get a private access group with this, and that allows you to get priority support. So um, even after the 2 months is over. But yeah, within the first 2 months, email me. It's all included in there. You can contact me on Facebook as well and I'll get back to you. So initially, I had 30 courses in this program. Now I've got 70. So it's something that I continually build upon and offer additional value. So the fourth bonus, like I mentioned before, is just that you get access to all the previous ads-free live workshops. So that's one that I painted in a previous session. These are line and wash workshops that were quite popular back then, and they still are actually. So how much does it cost? Of course, I'll just include talk to you about summarize what's included. 70 full courses, 2 months student support, private group access. Normally, I price it at $497, but today, if you sign up, you can get it for $297 US. It's quite a good deal if you consider how many courses you get in them. And each of these courses sell from between $10 to $30 US on different platforms that I teach on. So really, that's what I mean by in terms of the overall value, you get a lot included in there. So that's another sort of before and after. If you're interested, just add your name in the comments. Just say interested or enroll in the comments, and I will send you a link. And you can also just check the link in the description. It's all available there if you want to click and sign up for it. Today, I'll leave it at this price for about a day or so. And some more here as well when I started painting. That's another one. Took me an hour to paint this one here around about the same time, and that's included as well. So yeah, you'll be able to access basically my entire process, and I run through that process in different ways through each reference photo. I tackle it in a slightly different way, but the process remains the same. I analyze the photo, think to myself, what's the lighter elements? What's the dark elements? Do I want to shift around some buildings? Do I want to make this building more detailed? Do I want to decrease the detail in it? Do I want to put some people in here to make the composition look to have a bit more depth? This didn't have any people in there. I put some people in there so that it would look like it's kind of leading into the scene. Things like that really going to help you out. So if you're interested, drop a link in the chats, and I will get back to you. Okay, I've also got a Patreon that you can sign up for about a month if you want to check out what's in there, and it also has my courses in there too. Okay, so if you want to give it a shot for about a month, you can do that as well. But this is probably the best and the most um, the most high value that you get if you sign up for this particular program. Here are some of my student testimonials as well. So in case you are wondering, Philip, one of my YouTube viewers, actually commented in the last month. I think I hadn't seen him for a while. And I'm the only one, well, very few people that run these full tutorials, these full workshops on YouTube, and they're free. And the reason why is because I run by a kind of freemium model because I really love painting and I really love sharing my knowledge with people. And I know that a certain percentage of people will probably enroll in my courses at the end of the day. So yeah, it's my passion. I really love doing it. Do I have some more? Here we go. Got some more student testimonials here as well. Okay, so there we have it. Really, let me see if I can just show you quickly what it looks like when you enroll. I've got this page up here. This is what you get. Okay, if you can see, look at that. So these are all the different classes that are included. Okay, you got line and wash. In here, you've got loose landscapes. What have you got here? You've got Barmouth Whales Shadow. So if you want to click on that one. So all the courses are just linked here on the side. The sub courses. There's 70 of them in this program. And my internet's running a bit slow at the moment because I am streaming. So it's taking a little bit, but it will load faster.
This is some yellow, and then I'll drop in a bit of coolness for the legs, just like that, just to get them to stick out a bit more. Okay.
You really can, like I said, just pause, rewind it, and go through. If you have questions as well, leave them in the chats. I can answer any of your questions about this course. I really back it, and it's my best work. But other than that, I'm just interested to hear how you thought about today's workshop and if you have any final questions as well. Because I'm going to hang around for a little bit and answer your questions. Let me just flip. I'm going to flip back to my normal view. Here we go. So that's what we painted today. I'll probably go in and change, maybe just detail a little bit here and there. Okay. But let me have a look at what we've got in terms of questions. So there's a question, Eric Davis. Are you working flat or on a tilted surface? So today I've just worked on a flat surface, but normally I tilt the paper very slightly, and that allows the paint to run down and stops it from pooling. I recommend if you're a beginner to tilt the paper a little bit. I'm a bit more experienced, so if I see an area that might be pooling, getting a bit of extra water in some areas here and there, I'm quick to mop it up. Okay, but I do recommend painting on a very slight line. Even if you just put a book or something underneath and just lift it up, that's going to be completely fine. There is a comment from Desi as well. My biggest struggle is water ratio on my brush. I have a very difficult time getting the softness you were able to obtain. Yep. And look, it takes time. It takes a lot of time to and experience to understand exactly how much water to get on your brush, what kind of proportions, and the timing of it as well. So I hope today's session helped you to have a taste of that and practice that as well. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for coming along. Any other comments? Any other aggressive koala says, looking superb, by the way. Oh, fell asleep. 4:27 a.m. We've done well to make it that far. 4:27 a.m. I'd be sleeping as well. I tend to sleep pretty late, but yeah, that'd be pushing it for me. What else have we got here? Just checking who else. What other comments have we got? Um, Loy says, "Wow, my painting turned out much better than I thought. I almost gave up midway. Thank you for the beautiful painting session. Enjoyed this one so much. Thank you, Loy. Thank you for coming along. I really appreciate you being here. Uh, yeah, for some reason, it's a good thing I have another computer opened up on the side because I can't. For some reason, some of the comments. Can I just refresh? Maybe I can just refresh these comments. Yeah, for some reason, it's just not showing up so well. Looking at my other computer. Oh, here we go. Got a few more. I can see them now. Click that refresh button. Let me just go through. Sorry, I've missed some of your comments. Sweetheart Herrera looks so awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming along. And Ramona Inskeep. Good to see you again, Ramona. Looks amazing. How'd you go today? Did you manage to keep up all right? And Ginger Gunter says, "Love it. It was also quite fun. Thank you." Thanks, Ginger. And what makes it fun as well, I find, is when you choose a reference photo that you like. And this one was an interesting one. Like I said, I did a quick sketch of it before. But apart from that, this is really my first go at this scene. And, the more you do something, the better it gets. The better you get at it. What am I trying to say? I've lost some brain cells after this painting session. Ross says, "Thanks, Darren. Great session. Pretty happy with the result. Start of a long journey, I think." Yeah, and Ross, it's often the journey is the most fun part. And I don't know if I'll ever reach the end of it in terms of looking at a painting and saying I've got nothing else to learn. This is it. I think it's a lifelong thing, and lifelong obsession keeps me busy, and that's a good thing. So thank you for coming along. What else have we got here? Jones got a comment. Oh, where is it? Jones says, "Sorry, couldn't make it tonight. Will there be a replay?" Yeah, so you can watch this replay afterwards. Once I end the stream, it is available. I don't remove these. Like I said, I run these workshops for free, and it's worked out well for me because at the end of the day, a small percentage of people will buy my program, and that helps support me a great deal as an artist continue doing what I'm doing. And it's really none of this would be possible. None of this would be possible without any of you watching and painting along. So really, thank you so much for coming along. I think that's it. I'm just looking through. I don't think there's any other comments. Pamela says, I like it. Looks good. Great, Pamela. How did you go? Do you like your version, though? That's the question. Okay. I think that's it. I think that pretty much is it. So, you guys have done really well hanging around till the end. Super job. And I also have another channel which I've linked. I've started a new YouTube channel with just some plein air tutorials. I've started doing some plein air stuff, going out and actually painting in person. So check that out on my pages. I've actually linked it on my Watercolor Mentor page and also my Darren Yu art page. And yeah, if you have any questions, you're watching after the session, let me know and I will get back to you. Other than that, I'm going to end this session and I hope to see you along next time, and happy painting for you all.